hoping I don't become the person that flies with their house pillow. Like, that's just the grossest thing ever. Why would you ever expose the pillow from your bed at home to an airline seat? Like, that's disgusting.
Maybe that's their designated travel pillow.
No, it's not. They're clutching it, and they're always in pink sweatpants.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Humphreys, and this is The Pursuit, where I help you in your journey, your hustle, and your climb to be your best self and put out your best work. After all, I'm still hustling for that too, guys. So I sit down and interview today's most successful celebrities, executives, and entrepreneurs, and I break down success for the rest of us. Let's dive into this episode with New York Times bestselling author, Jon Acuff. Jon Acuff is the New York Times bestselling author of 5 books, including his most recent, Do-Over, Rescue Monday, Reinvent Your Work, and Never Get Stuck. For 18 years, he's helped some of the biggest brands in the world tell their story, including the Home Depot, Staples, and the Dave Ramsey team. Most recently, he's spoken to hundreds of thousands of people across the country at events for companies like Microsoft, Whirlpool, and Comedy Central. He is a big proponent of social media, with blogs that have been read by over 4 million people and more than 275,000 Twitter followers. I sat to talk with Jon about his success in Franklin, Tennessee.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Pursuit. I am here with Jon Acuff, which if you're on Twitter, I'm sure you have seen one of his hilarious tweets in like every major television event, sporting event. This guy says something hilarious. Also, he is a New York Times bestselling author. This is his most recent book, Do-Over, but he has a couple other books, Start, Quitter, and then Back in the Day, Stuff Christians Like. So I am a huge fan, and I have to tell you, thank you for coming on the show. Part of my job is to not be starstruck. That's part of the deal. And the first multiple times I met you, I was the most awkward version of myself. Super embarrassing, fell all over myself. So I'm pretty sure when I approached you to be on the show, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's going to say no because I was so weird. But part of that is because reading Start changed my life. After I read that book, I decided to write my first book, Go Solo. And then I joined this crazy online community that not only helped launch my career, Launch Out, which is a conference that came out of his community, was my first speaking gig. More importantly, that community and support group helped me to get sober, which is kind of a heavy way to start the episode. But so, I attribute so much of my success to your work and what you've been doing, what you feel called to do. So thank you for being faithful to your calling.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm sorry for how awkward I have been over the last 2 years.
I don't think it was that awkward.
Oh,
I don't know. I did the podcast or the video because Michael Hyatt, didn't he say it was the best interview he'd ever done?
Well, he is so great because he's
said
done a
top
lot
two.
So someone out
Who's
there,
the other one?
he won't. That's the thing. That's his way of not
Top
offending
2.
anyone, which is genius, Mike. He's not offending anyone, but also saying I may or may not be the best.
That's funny.
So I like to start at the beginning with my guest, which really for you, you knew you wanted to be a writer at age 8 or 9, and basically took 30 years to identify that way.
It took the long way around.
But I want to get to that in a minute, and let's go through some of these steps. You get out of college, you go into advertising, and you work in advertising for about a decade, and you end up writing for some of the biggest brands at the time. You're writing for Auto Trader, and you wrote for, what was it, Staples?
Bose and Staples and Home Depot.
Giant, Home Depot. So someone watching who is in an advertising career, I feel like right there you already have something to offer them because you had a successful career for a decade. What is your advice to someone out there who wants to do that?
Well, just be curious. That's all advertising is being curious to what trends are coming down, what do people care about, how do you meet that, how to communicate that, how do you make a boring product interesting. I think advertising is it's a form of art and it's a form of entertainment. So I think it's a really fascinating field. I had a great time in it.
But you obviously didn't love that career, as
Sure.
you talk about in your books. If you've never read one of Jon's books, you kind of write from the trenches, as you call it, which I love. So you can kind of follow his entire life by reading his work, which is very cool. So what was the point that got you to writing in the mornings? You started your blog in 2008, Stuff Christians Like. What got you to that point where you're like, okay, you know what? I'm actually going to start writing every day?
Yeah, I don't know there was one moment. I think we always want a eureka moment, and so often, for me anyway, I haven't had those. It was more, I think my frustration level eclipsed my laziness level, where I I was just tired of not writing the kind of stuff I wanted to write. And no one was stopping me. That's the thing about this generation, is that all the gatekeepers are gone except the hardest one, which is you. So no one, if you wanted to write today, no one is stopping you from starting a blog. Like, if you live in this country, there's no one stopping you from starting a business or taking photos or, a million other things. And so for me, I just got so frustrated, and then a friend encouraged me to start a blog. And so really his little nudge was what I needed to get started.
Day 9, 4,000 people show up. So you basically hit like this blog lottery on day 9.
Yeah.
So first tell us, what were you doing day 1 through 8? And then what did you have to do day 10 through, after you had some momentum?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even an original idea. Somebody else had done a stuff blank people like a concept. And so I just thought I'd love to do my version of that. And I talked about that, like it wasn't secret about it. And then I just wrote a ton. Like I was doing 4 or 5 posts a day because I had this built up creativity that I hadn't expressed other places. And so I started to write really quickly. All I did, like, it wasn't a marketing win in that I sent it to like 100 friends. And then by day 9, people were sending it to me, not knowing I had written it. And so, yeah, it was like, there's a couple things I'll never be able to teach, like how to slowly grow a blog. I won't be able to teach that because I had this awesome moment. It'd be like somebody really tall would have a hard time teaching rebounding in basketball.
Yeah.
Like, you're 7 feet tall. Like, the best wisdom won't make me not 5'8".
Right.
And so that was kind of the start of it. And then it just took off. And then I was really deliberate about maintaining. But the first 9 days, like, I can't take credit for that.
What was the work ethic like then? Because that eventually got you your first book deal, a book version of the blog. And you still have a full-time job at that point. I think people today think, I'm going to start this blog, and then like 2 years later, I'm going to monetize, and that's going to be my
Nobody
income.
waits 2 years to monetize, by the way.
True,
Yeah.
true. So tell us how, kind of that timeline and, what kind of work went into it.
Yeah, it just was a matter of being deliberate in the morning before work to do the thing I wanted to do, which made work easier. There's so often we want work to do something it won't do. No one at AutoTrader, which is a great company, like, it was a great job for me to have. It just wasn't writing satire. Now, it was really unfair for me to have a grumpy attitude of, I can't believe I don't get to write what I want to write here. They hadn't hired me to write that.
Right.
And so once I realized that and realized, I need to be great at my job, I need to be great at the side of things, that's when I started to write in the morning, actively collect ideas during the day and night, and really get deliberate about it. And then through that process, got to do a book. I got to do some public speaking. That's kind of how public speaking goes. One day you don't do it, and then one day you do. And then hopefully you're around long enough to get better at it.
Let's talk about actively collecting ideas. You just mentioned that is a really underrated common trait of people I interview. That a lot of people watching, you guys aren't valuing your ideas. So talk about, were you carrying a notebook around, or what was your process?
It was both. At the time, this is before smartphones. So at the time, I was just carrying around those small kind of pocket-sized hardback moleskin notebooks. So I would literally just start a notebook at idea number 1 and write idea 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I saw something that I thought was interesting or unique or funny, I would try to capture it in a sentence or two. I always call it the gingerbread method, in that I just need the words to lead me back to the main idea, like the Hansel and Gretel. And so if I saw something, for instance, the other day, I saw a Pokemon sign on a bar, and it was advertising all these Pokemon things related to this bar restaurant. I thought, it's really smart. Like, it hasn't even been out that long. They've already figured out how to tie it in. So I took a photo, wrote a note, and then today on acuff.me, or whenever this airs, you could see a post about how to ride momentum versus try to create it, because creating it's really hard. Writing it, the reason I live tweet the Grammys is there's the momentum of the Grammys, and you get to enter the conversation versus trying to start that same size momentum. So that's where I talked about being curious. Like, you've got to be curious, and then you start to just collect the ideas. But you can't write it in the moment. Nobody's life is that way, where you can stop for half an hour and write. But you can take 30 seconds and scribble something down.
How much time are you spending on tweets? Is it just natural for you, or are you actually sitting?
It depends on there's days when I only tweet like 2 or 3 times, but I'll collect them. Like, I'll throw them into a folder and go,
Okay.
I'll tweet this later. If I'm at the airport, like when I travel, I think a lot about Twitter, like, I don't know, hoping I don't become the person that flies with their house pillow. Like, that's just the grossest thing ever. Why would you ever expose the pillow from your bed at home to an airline seat? Like, that's disgusting.
Maybe that's their designated travel pillow.
No, it's not. They're clutching it, and they're always in pink sweatpants. So, like, I might think that, but then I'll go, I don't have the words right. I have the idea right. I don't have the words right. Let me throw that in a folder somewhere. But like, if I'm live tweeting something like the Grammys, then it's just run and gun, and you're trying to, before they get to the next singer, you're trying to say something in the moment because everybody's watching it. And I like that because it keeps you sharp as a writer, and forces you to go, oh yeah, okay. And then, like, photos for Instagram, I'll gather those. I have 6,000 photos on my camera, and some of them I'll pull up and go, oh yeah, that was that funny thing I saw, and it's related to this. I should do that. I mean, I think if I was smarter, I'd have categories in my phone, but right now I just have a Twitter folder.
Yeah, so valuable. Whitney wrote in with a great question about offending people, because you're very funny, and a lot of times, it is satirical.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially back then it was.
Sure.
How do you deal with when someone is really offended by your work?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on if I actually did something wrong. I mean, there's times where you cross a line because you didn't know the line was there, and you did offend somebody, and you have to delete something, which is one way. Another way is recognizing some people enjoy being offended because it's the only form of expression of emotion they have. So anger is their only outlet. And so they'd actually be mad if you took away that anger. Like, they don't even want an apology for you. It's their only way to express themselves. And so you have to understand we live in a culture that thrives on anger. Like, the other day I saw a site, like one of the top journalism or news sites in the world, and it said, the title was Meltdown. And the article was about 6 tweets people had written about being mad that Bradley Cooper was at the DNC. 6 people, 6 of the 900 million people on Twitter. And the title was Meltdown. And so, like, we have a media culture that feeds into this idea that you should be angry, you should be offended, you should, express yourself on Twitter. And then you have to remember, as far as offending people, everyone on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, their first belief was people need to know what I think. Like, for them to even share stuff is to believe the world needs to hear what I have going on in my head. So you're already not dealing with a normal populace. Like, so once you realize that, you go, okay, like, that they don't know me, that was silly. But you have to understand, people, like, there will always be people offended at what you do. So the other day I tweeted, my 10-year-old was like, Dad, a great way to impress your teacher on the first day is to bring a book to school to read during breaks. I was like, oh, that's funny. So I said that, and somebody said, you're raising a scammer, like that. And I just thought, or she's 10. Like, yesterday she pretended the floor was lava. Like, why would I take her thoughts seriously? And so you just have to realize, like, the internet's weird. And so if you did offend somebody and it's legitimate, delete it, apologize, whatever you have to do to feel right. If you didn't, just roll with it.
You started booking your own speaking gigs back in the day from your Stuff Christians Like momentum. How did you do that? What advice do you have for people who are still, just starting out booking gigs themselves?
Well, don't be afraid to speak for free. I mean, the reality is you haven't earned the right to charge money. Like, nobody knows if you're good, especially if there's no video on you or no testimonials. And so I would say, first, you're going to do free stuff. And that's not failure. That's the path. Like, great major leaguers who become Hall of Famers often play AAA baseball first. You have to be flexible. So there's times where you might take less than what you really want to get paid because you need the experience, or you need the recognition, or you need to be next to some other speakers. Like, it helps you to be able to say, can't wait to do this event that Gary Vee is going to be at. It's going to be so fun. Like, you need that more than you need the fee.
Right.
And so would it be nice to get an extra $400? Maybe. But it might be even better for you to have the photo of you and a bunch of established speakers on Instagram to establish some authority.
One thing I heard you say in an interview that I think was really smart is that not only are you thinking about the audience, but you spend a lot of time thinking about the person who booked you as a speaker and and benefiting them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, their job is hard, in that they've got a ton of different people they're trying to please. So in any given situation, the person that books you, it's not their full-time job. Usually, like, if they're at a company, most companies aren't big enough or have the need for a full-time event planner. So they're wearing a bunch of different hats. they have to book a speaker that the CEO is going to like, that the salesperson is going to like, that the people that are the middle managers are going to like. They've got to make sure that people are engaged. Often at corporations, like if somebody's been made to attend the event, they're not even excited. So you've said to the finance department, you have to come hear this speaker. So they're not necessarily there to hear Jon Acuff. They're there because they have to be there. So there's all these pressures they have, and then on top of that, you add speakers that come in with egos or are difficult to work with or only have one speech and this is the speech you're getting, and it just makes their job really difficult. So yeah, one of the questions I always ask is, and I'm going to ask it later today, I've got a phone call with a client later today in Texas, is how can I make you look like a rock star? 2 weeks later, why are the people around you going to be saying, way to go, Brenda, thanks for bringing Jon in, what can I do to help that? And often they answer with something about the audience. So they'll say, well, make sure you cover this, or make sure this is shared. So yeah, and it's just smart. If you want to, like, my goal is to turn one-time speeches into multiple-time visits with a client, because then you really get to build momentum. So I want them to feel like they got served.
I think that's such a great tip for people who are starting out, because they're not thinking about clients even. I don't even think they use the word client. I think they're thinking speaking gig.
Sure.
And in listening to all your interviews, I was like, that's a really good mind shift for people. Right now, we are sitting in Premier Speakers Bureau. Thanks to them for letting us shoot here today. How does that play a part in your current, are they out pitching for you? Are you also pitching?
Yeah, both. Sometimes I'll receive leads on acuff.me. It's my speakers forum. So I'll receive leads that way and I'll send them over here. And also they have a team of dedicated folks that are experts. That's why I partnered with them right away when I started my own company. I recognized I don't have that expertise. Like, I love to be on stage. I don't love to do the work of trying to figure out how to book me on stage.
Yeah.
And that was not something I wanted to do. And I was fortunate enough in my own town to have folks like Sean Hanks and Brian Lord and Brian Elliott and this huge team of people that do that for some of the best speakers in the world. If you go to their site, I'm not on the homepage because like they're booking Magic Johnson and Mike Huckabee and other people whose names don't start with M. Like they have a lot of people. And so yeah, that's how we ended up partnering, and they've been really generous to share their office space at times when I needed to do something fun.
What is your advice for someone who wants to eventually get, on a roster?
Well, I'd say ask somebody who is on a roster for advice, like how did you get on a roster? And then ask somebody at the Speakers Bureau, how do I get on a roster? Like the worst way is blanket them with requests. Because a lot, like a good Speakers Bureau like Premier isn't actively looking for
Right.
talent. Like they're not beating the
They don't
bushes.
need help.
Like I hope there's a guy who's got a story about a dog,
Yeah.
But they will, people like me, when asked, will say, oh, here's how it works, and here's what it takes, and you need to have your own momentum, and you need to know. So and I recommend people to them all the time that I think, oh, they'd be great. So it's not that they don't take new clients, it's just they don't, I don't know how many dozens of requests they get a week that are unsolicited. So
Right.
it's like publishing a book. Like you don't just send your book to the publisher.
Yeah.
There's a process.
Next, you get hired by Dave Ramsey and
Mm-hmm.
join the Ramsey team. That job right there, I feel like there's probably people watching who would kill for that
Sure.
kind of opportunity.
Sure.
So maybe some tips on how you got that gig, advice for people landing their dream job like that.
Yeah, well, it goes back to doing stuff for free. So I spoke 3 times for free at their company. And there was a part of me, and I tell this story in one of my books, where I was like, am I supposed to charge him? He's a money guy. Is this like he won't respect me if I don't ask, or like they won't value? Because there are situations where the more you charge, the better you're treated, or the more you're charged, the more you're seen as an expert. That's certainly true in freelance writing. But so I took the risk of going, I'm going to drive up from Atlanta 3 times, find my own transportation, do all this in the hope of something turning out into something bigger. So I'd say the first thing is you have to be willing to do the trade-offs for hopefully the long-term payout. And when you get there, you have to be able to deliver. So the first time I spoke there was only the second time I'd ever spoken professionally. But I had to practice going in. I had to know my material. So it was an opportunity that a friend of mine said, fast forward my career by 10 years. And he's right. That platform, that exposure was invaluable to my long-term career. There's things I'm getting to do now that I couldn't have done without the push and the platform of Dave Ramsey going, this is my guy, here's why. So it's, I can't be grateful enough for that opportunity.
So then we arrive at what everyone wants to turn into like an Us Weekly expose, right?
He's such a boring Us Weekly expose.
That you
like Orlando
depart.
Bloom is up to different things.
That you depart from the Ramsey organization. And the reason why this has maybe become such a big deal is because you are so authentic in your writing. You tell everyone on your blog everything that's going on, and then all of a sudden you have to be hush-hush. But now after listening to you explain this multiple times, let me see if I can kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it. So you are hired by him, and you said that you went to personal branding, like got a PhD in personal branding, working for him, learning how to build a brand and build a platform. And you're also learning all about entrepreneurship. So obviously that starts to call your name. And at the same time, you're writing about entrepreneurship and how to take risks and go after your dreams while being employed by a giant corporation. So then that starts to feel inauthentic. At the same time, there is a path that you feel called towards, which is being an artist and focusing on your craft, maybe versus becoming a product platform machine. That's me guessing, but I feel like those are kind of the two areas. So it starts to feel inauthentic, and you decide to depart. And legally and out of respect, there are some things you can't talk about, and also just like we don't need to know, you know.
Yeah. Well, also like it's 3 years ago. I just feel like it's some of the stuff is small now. But I mean, ultimately, I wanted to be a business author and a business speaker, and I wasn't running a business. So 5 years from now, would I want to have said, I spent the last half decade as an employee, or I spent the last half decade building my own business so that I can speak to businesses that are building businesses? So for me, it was, okay, it's an amazing opportunity, and it's definitely one path, and there's folks that are on that path, and they're crushing it right now, which is great. But for me, if I wanted to, in my opinion, speak authentically about business, I had to go run a business. And you can't build your own thing inside of somebody else's thing. Like it's just, it would be ludicrous for me to say, okay, Dave, I want my own brand with no extensions, no restrictions, and I want to use your people, your talent, your money, your budget, your experts, your radio show. And so eventually that just became really obvious of, okay, the easier path is this, and there's tons of benefits there. Which is why I don't criticize it. And then as far as sharing things, whenever somebody's like, well, we want to know what happened, I always say, well, post your salary on Twitter and I'll tell you what happened. And they go, well, that's private. I go, right. Like when you have interactions with HR departments, you like any other employee. Like what was weird was that it was public and that I'd been sharing my story, but at the same time, it was like, I wouldn't tweet my salary. And there's entrepreneurs that do that, and I just think that's garbage. Like when they tell you how much money they're making, it's like, to me, it's just such a silly thing.
But I would say, I think even though it was like an amicable breakup, it was messy because like he owned jonacuff.com, or you know, like there are just some properties you no longer have access to. So it was messy, even though I think there was mutual respect.
In let's say, I've said this before, in the absence of a story, people write their own. So that was the challenge, is that, and that's just human nature. If somebody leaves your church, if a pastor leaves your church, even if it was great, people go, I bet there was something in the background. So I completely, I mean, I do the same thing. With people on TV, with neighbors, like it's so easy to assume, oh, this is what happened. But again, like for me, the thing I come back to is it did wonders for the rest of my career. And so, there's always messiness when good things end, but I try to look at the good thing and remember what was there, and then be able to celebrate what they're doing.
Then you're there out on your own in the wilderness, and you said that Jenny drug a fat, depressed Jon Acuff to Penguin. How did you get your mojo back? I mean, that was a huge life change, which is part of what Do-Over is about. But what do you think helped you bounce back?
I just think time. There's so often we want, especially if you're a verbal extrovert kind of person, we want to reflect on like a change while we're still in it. Like we're trying to paint the picture of the shipwreck while we're still in the water. And so I think most people don't give themselves long enough to feel something, to experience something. They want to be over. I tell people sometimes, depending on the job, it's going to take you 3 months per 1 year you work there to get over it completely. And by get over, I mean unlearn the wrong things you were there, learn some new things, not have that phantom itch of driving this road to the place. So like, if you were somewhere for 9 years, it might take 27 months for you to completely shake that place. But we think, oh, by the time I get the next job, by the time I get my first paycheck, by the time summer hits, I'll be completely different. But you're still acting out of the old rules of the old place. And so I think for me, it was just about time and figuring out a rhythm, and getting some clients, and getting some new work, and going, oh, okay, like this is a huge client. Like I had my best year business-wise ever the second year, but it wasn't the first year, but it was the second year, and it was like, okay, well now I can see how the game's played. I took 5 weeks off this summer. Like I never got to do that when I worked at a company.
Yeah.
I'll probably take 8 weeks off or 9 weeks off this year, like 2 months off a year. That's crazy.
Right.
And so starting to get a rhythm and starting to go, okay, I can do things on my own. I think that's what helped long term.
You mentioned, that you learned so much there. Let's maybe just touch on the PhD you got in brand building. What are
Sure.
some mistakes people are making? And now you're on your own building your brand. What are people, maybe your best tip to do, to not do?
Okay, mistakes people are making. I think they're rushing ideas to market before they're ready. They're confusing the ease of getting an idea online with the need to do it that second. So just because it's easy to sell a class doesn't mean you're ready to sell a class. I hate this mentality I see where people go, if you want to make money, what you do is you go and figure out a Google search that people are doing, and then you create a digital product based on that, and then you sell it. You didn't know that thing existed prior to looking up the Google search. You're not like, who are you to charge money for that? And so I think there's a lot of people that I'd say, go get more expertise in that. Be honest about what your strengths are that you can share and sell. Be honest about what you can't, where you would go. Like I know people in home-based businesses that a lot of times work on levels, like achieving a certain level. And they'll have people sell them a path or a plan to get to that level. And those people aren't at that level. And you go, well, how do they have advice when they're not able to do it themselves? And so I think that's what I'd say is like, develop your authority. Never write a book as a way to establish authority. I think those end up being just the worst books. Like when people go, a book's a great business card. No, it's a terrible business card. Like you're going to create a terrible book. So it's the same with self-publishing. When people go, the gatekeeper's gone, I don't have to go through a publisher. They often go, and I don't have to go through an editor. And they skip the editor, and they pay for something about how to market your book, but they don't spend any money on the editor. And the editor matters so much. And so that's what I'd say, bad advice. Good advice that I would say, like, what are good things people are doing? I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are really well organized and have turned what they do into a really smart system. I think Jeff Goins an example of that. I think people really benefit from what he does with his tribe riders. I think Michael Hyatt, we've talked about, is a great example of that. That are using the tools in smart ways. Like those are guys I look at and go, oh, okay, like I need to change this. I need to be careful about this. And then I think just being authentic. My 30 Days of Hustle program is just me, it's sharing ideas, it's step by step, and it's me in my living room. So I kind of took the concept of, if we had coffee, what would I tell you? Because the challenge is when you sell something, you often go into salesperson mode or expert mode, and you end up saying a bunch of things that just might not be true, but they're fun to say.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say.
Talk a little bit about the decision to finally do a program, to finally monetize. Why did you decide to do that?
Part of it was I didn't want to not do it out of fear. Like I've learned in life that if there's things I'm over criticizing, I need to make sure I'm not doing it because I'm afraid. So there were times where I'd criticize other programs because I was afraid to do my own.
Yep.
And so I didn't want to not do it out of fear, and then I wanted to do something that actually had value. So I spent a year doing it for free. So, which is not easy. Like that's not a fun path. But so I did it with 10,000 people for free for a year. And then I finally was ready to go, okay, I'm going to do the work of shooting the videos. I'm going to do the work of doing a script. I'm going to do this work. And we've had 3,500 people go through it. And the thing I'm most excited about is we had a researcher from a college study the results, an independent researcher. And I can now say, like, when you do this, you're this % more successful.
Wow.
Like, and nobody's doing that right now.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's operating on the internet rule of, like, say it and hope it's true. So then I feel way more confident. But it was a process of going, let me try it for free, see if people are interested. let me do video. But part of it too is just admitting the medium's changed. I'm a writer, so doing videos is new to me. And that's taken time to get comfortable with. I'm like everybody else. I don't love change. I'm not like, yay, my whole model's upside down.
Right.
But it's been really fun, and I've really seen the impact. Now, where I have to be careful is that I never want to sell a class that's not authentic. Like an inauthentic class for me would be if I ever tried to sell a class on how to book speaking gigs. And the reason that would be fake is that because I worked for Dave Ramsey, I got to skip that stage.
Right.
Like it would be wildly unfair for me to pretend I didn't and then go teach you steps I didn't have to use. Step one should be have a boss who has 7 million radio listeners and will advertise your name. And then enjoy the speaking gigs.
You're done.
Now, on the flip side, I would teach here's how to structure a speech. Here's how to give a speech. Here's how to thread humor in at the right time. Here's how to, like, all the things that I'm a nerd about, that I really am deliberate about crafting, I would feel fine teaching that. Same with writing a book. Like, I feel fine doing that. But there's certain things that I just go, like, I get that the money's there, but it's not the kind of money I want to earn.
Are you going to do more programs?
Yeah, I'm going to do one with Jenny, my wife, about how to be married to a dreamer. We're going to do one with that. I'm probably going to do a speaking one, and I'm probably going to do a writing one. And the speaking one might be, as simple as 100 things it took me 10 years to learn, and say, okay, there's a question I ask clients that nobody asks that's the most important question. And so I would teach that, and that's a 5-minute video, and it's really simple. And
right.
You go, here's why I did it, and here's how it saved me 5 times. So that kind of thing, that's interesting to me.
Let's talk about speaking. I was going to tweet you one day and ask if you'd studied speakers, and then I saw you studied comedians, like over 100 comedians.
Yeah.
So what are speakers and writers, I think, out there, what can they learn from comedians? What are they maybe not picking up on that you've learned?
Well, it's timing. Comedians are great at holding a pause. A comedian's whole job is to make you laugh, so they have to be ready for you to laugh and give you space and know how to amplify the laugh with a layered joke. Timing's a big part. Choosing the right word. Comedians are brilliant at choosing the right word. Like, I heard a comedian the other day talking about a weird restaurant, and he said they were serving squirrel faces. And faces was a brilliant addition. Squirrel is like, they're serving squirrel. Squirrel faces was so specific. Like, not the whole squirrel, the face of the squirrel. That's where the joke was. So you'll learn from comedians to go, oh, that's where the line was. Like Seinfeld talks about that. He said the first time he tried a Pop-Tart, it blew off the back of his head. And he said back of the head was the most important part. He said, it blew my mind. That's a boring phrase. Back of his head is a very expressive, like, oh, you get that.
Yeah.
So you learn the right word. You learn how to say things that everybody's thinking. That's what great comedians do. They make commentary. I saw a comedian, Tom Papa, and he said, we have a diabetic cat. He said, when I was growing up, that wasn't a phrase that existed. He said, diabetic cat was code for new cat. And so he was saying, like, as soon as he said diabetic cat, people thought, man, that seems complicated. Like, that seems really hard. Like, cats are everywhere. You can get another cat. And so, like, setting people up, you can learn how to take a phrase to the left. Like, I'm a big believer in the hard left, where you say something that everybody thinks is going to go somewhere, and then you turn it. So for me on Twitter, that's one of my favorite tweets I ever wrote was, sometimes I worry about the news. Huey Lewis can take care of himself, but those guys are on their own. So, like, I led you down the path, and then hard left hand turned it. So, like, that's the kind of stuff comedians teach you, the good ones teach you, if you'll pay attention.
Now, what's your current process for speeches now?
So I'm writing one right now. I'm doing a new speech on the importance of likability when it comes to building a business and growing your sales. Because I think when you look at a lot of great salespeople, there's a likability there. And I was curious, is that something like we talk about, like the it factor? Like they're born with it, they're charismatic. Like, so same with writing a book, start to gather ideas in my notebook and go, okay, gather. So as I'm going about my day, I'll remember, I met that UFC fighter. There's this fight trainer that trained Chuck Liddell, the most successful UFC fighter of all time. And I've coached him a couple times on business. And he said, John, one of the things I can't teach is chin. Like, I can't teach chin. He said, it breaks my heart because I'll have guys that are hungry and talented and all that, but the way their chin is physically wired, like their nerve is too close to the edge and they'll get knocked out if they get tapped. And he said, there's no getting around that. So then I'll thread that into my speech in a funny way and tell the story. Instead of saying, I wondered if it was something you could learn, I'll say, I wondered if you could learn it, or was it like chin? And then I'll tell that story, which illustrates the point of like, there are some things in life that are chin, but there's a lot of them that aren't. And we assume too many are not our chin that really aren't. So I'll think through that, and then I'll write like a long draft of it. And then I'll get slides made from the key points, from like the tweetable moments, because that's all I try to put on a slide. So on a slide, I'll say, read less minds, ask more questions. And then I'll do a joke about, I know it should be fewer, it's killing you if it's less, but rhythm is a dancer and less is a better rhythm. And then I'll practice the speech, and then I'll give it, 50 times and hone it every time.
What are some other ways, like what are some other processes you have in your writing process? Things like, are you doing things in batches, maybe some hacks for productivity and all
No,
those
so for me today, I'm working on a new book, and so I have like a 6x4 piece of foam board, and took all my ideas that I've been gathering, like 500 ideas, and put them on note cards and organized them in 3 categories for the book. So then I can start to lay out chapters based on that. So that's a process I do a lot. The more I can sit on something, the better. So if I can go away for a day or two and then come back and go, this story is too long, it needs a joke here, it's depressing. That's a process. Another process is just learning from other people. Like recently, I saw somebody who's really smart at online marketing, and I signed up for his free offering because I knew that would put me in the funnel of all his emails. It was really educational. And like, that's free.
Right.
Like, and it didn't bother me. Like, I thought his emails were great. Like, it wasn't a nuisance to me. And I just watched them and was like, oh, wow, he sent 3 out about that Facebook Live thing. That's really good to know. And one was 5 minutes before it started. Or here's how he did a day after. Like, so he closed the cart, which, ended the sell. But because it was around July 4th, he came back on the Monday or the Tuesday and said, hey, we got a lot of out of office messages, so we want to make sure you didn't miss it.
Was this Lewis' house?
Yeah, here's one more chance. And I thought, that's really that's
yep,
really
Lewis,
smart.
good job. We both were impressed with that.
Yeah, and so like I'll look at, so part of my process is just finding people like a Lewis, like a Michael Hyatt, whoever, that I go, oh man, that's smart. Like Derek Sievers is really smart at that. I should learn how to be smart at that too.
So we had a ton of people write in from your community about your questions, but first maybe just explain how this idea to join a Facebook group, became something amazing.
Yeah, it's really the people. I helped with the framework initially, but I think it's kind of like Seth Godin says, like, your best ideas are the ones people don't even know were yours to begin with. Like he said, when people would quote purple cow to him and not know he came up with that phrase, purple cow. So I had this thing called the START experiment, which was just a chance, kind of an early rendition of the 30 Days of Hustle, a bunch of emails, a community. We started a private Facebook group, and that took on a life of its own. And it changed into this group called the Dreamers and Builders. But I think the biggest revelation and surprise was what happens behind the wall of a private Facebook group. Because you think, like, what's a privacy policy on a Facebook group? Like, it's the internet, people won't share, they won't be honest. But what you find is that even that wall that feels low is enough safety, enough security, enough anonymity to share honestly. And so from there, again, like, all credit to the group. People did their own events, like Launch Out. There were singles retreats. There were other groups that came off of that. There's a language that came out of that. I remember I was in Washington, D.C., and somebody said, hey, 10 of those weirdos from our group came to my husband's funeral. She said, I never had met any of them, and he died of cancer, and they were through it, the whole process with me on Facebook, and they came to the funeral. And so that's one of those fun things where I can't go, see what I did? Like, I organized a funeral trip. Like, I didn't do that. I just created a space where people could do that. And so that's probably, like, with 30 Days of Hustle, that's one of the levels you can do, is like, I do want the community level. Because some people go, you know what? I don't even like Facebook. My goal is to stay off of Facebook.
Right.
And so, but one of the levels is, if you want to be part of this group, here's what you can do, and here's why you can do it. And just, I'm always trying to write to the me I used to be, who didn't have community, who felt like the only weirdo who wanted to do a dream, who couldn't have these conversations. And so the fun of going, okay, guy from Holland, lady from New Jersey, father from Nevada, you all want to write a book. Like, here, talk about that. Or Jill and Matt and Bill, you all want to do a home-based business. Like, here's how to do it. Here's how to do it in a way that doesn't skeeve your friends out. Here's how to do it, with honesty and integrity.
Amy wrote in and she asked what you see as the future of those. You think they'll fizzle out? You think you'll have to reinvent them?
I don't know that dreamers and builders will fizzle out in that there's so many active people still. I think that I'll continue to find ways to keep them fresh. Like, say the first 30 Days of Hustle group, it's got 3,000 people in it. When I create a new product, that will hopefully freshen that up. So when I come in and say, you did 101, now we're going to do 201, and here's what that means, I think it recharges the conversation. The other thing is that you can't paint every group with the same brush, and that dreamers and builders might last for years. 30 Days of Hustle February group might be built for February, and then they're supposed to go out and do other things. Or it might be I'm supposed to create an alumni group so that, say I do 30 Days of Hustle 12 times a year and it's 500 people in it, that all those 500 people move to the alumni. And you have 6,000 total, but 3,000 are really active. And now they have a space where they can go versus going, I hope the March group is a communicative one. So I think you just have to be creative with it.
Aurora wrote in 11 questions. So she's either your biggest fan or she needs to become a journalist. But the one I like the best, she asked, what routines and habits outside of work, so outside of writing, speaking, what outside of that habits and routines most positively affect your work?
Well, the gym. I go to a gym called Orange Theory, which is an hour-long circuit training, and I love that. And so in an amazing week, I go 4 times. In a busy travel season, I go 2 times. That's one of them. Hanging out on the back porch with my wife, Jenny, at night. Like, we don't watch a lot of TV. Not that I'm against TV. Like, of the two of us, I like it way more than she does. But I don't get to know her sitting next to her on the couch watching TV.
Yeah.
So, like, I would say when I'm in town 4 or 5 nights a week, the kids are in bed at 8. That's another positive habit. Like, put your kids to bed. Like, if you want to have a lame marriage, like, have them stay up till 10. Like, people that do that because they're afraid to talk to their spouse, and it's easier to use the kid as a distraction and some chaos so that you don't have to be alone with your spouse. And you go, well, that doesn't happen. That 100% happens. And then you get divorced. Then they get divorced when the kid goes to college. And so for me, putting the kids to bed has been like one of the best things because then we actually get to hang out.
That's an unexpected answer. And you're one of the few people that I've interviewed that still has pretty young kids. You know, your kids aren't grown. So that's a really interesting answer.
Old people.
So I was forgetting their names, but Danya and Ashley wrote in and they wanted to know about finding a Jenny, like for those single people out there, because you talk openly about how sometimes she's giving you a kick in the pants, sometimes she's your biggest cheerleader, like she's exactly what you need. What's your advice for single dreamers?
I always tell people, don't hang out, don't spend all your time with losers and then be surprised you don't have somebody great to date. Like, I think about my friends that would say, I'm in like a softball league with my drinking buddies from work and we do that and that's all I do, and then I just surf the internet, and I think, where in that week is somebody amazing going to enter your life?
Yeah.
So, spend time with the kind of people you'd like to marry. And so if you have this idea of a guy or a girl that you'd like to marry, work on becoming that type of person. And not in the way of like, hey, it's such bad advice when people go, you'll find love when you stop looking for it. Like, that's garbage. Yeah. Like, that's terrible. Nothing in life works that way.
Those people become cat ladies.
Yeah, but I do believe in the idea of like, I think a bunch of people have said this, like, go be the kind of friend you want to have. Mm-hmm. So like, go be the kind of date you want to have. Like, if you want to meet an active person, you know where they are? They're at the gym. They're in, hiking clubs. They're in trail running clubs. Like I saw, we were in Crested Butte, Colorado, in the middle of the nowhere in the mountains, and we saw like 50 people in a trail running club run by us. Like, if you wanted to meet somebody that was active and into that same thing, go join that. Yeah. That doesn't mean you get into the group and hit on everybody, but it does mean you're not going to meet a trail runner at home. Like, right. You're going to meet them in a trail. So I think you just have to be really deliberate about who you spend time with.
You talk a lot about writing, so I didn't want to go too far into your writing and your creative process. He wrote in with a good question, which I thought was interesting. What's your favorite thing to do when you're stuck?
I think I like to set word goals when I'm stuck. So, for instance, I'll say, what would it take to write 10,000 words this week? Okay, that's 7 days, but I'm really only write 5, so that breaks down to this amount. And then I can do anything for a small number. I can't write a book in a month, but I can write X amount of pages a day that might equal more than I would if I didn't have a goal. So for me, having a word goal is really helpful. Also writing with pen and paper. Like the computer feels more official. Like I have a harder time reversing there. Where like pen and pad, like you can just go, you can go, and then I'll come back and I'll input it into a computer and I'll edit it as I transfer it. So those are two things I do.
I heard you say in an interview that you try and work 4 hours a day. Is that still the case? What's your average?
I try to write 4 hours a day.
Right. Okay. So what's your average day like nowadays?
A great day, like this is a I'm at home day. Like Thursday I'll go to Minneapolis, so that's a different day. But on a day when I'm at home, I'll do Orange Theory. I'll get up at 5:30. I'll do Orange Theory from 6 to 7. I'll either go grab coffee with a friend or I'll come home and have breakfast with my youngest daughter. I'll walk her to school, and then I'll go to my favorite coffee shop from like 8:30 to 12:30 to write. And then I'll come home and I'll do phone calls, podcasts, emails, business stuff that I need to move forward. Because I don't have 8 hours of writing in a day.
What is your next pursuit? What's next for you?
I'm working on the next book. I'm going to do a big 30 Days of Hustle around January to help people with their goals. I only have 6 summers left with my oldest daughter in our house.
Wow.
And so, to be a present dad, we're going to New York for her birthday for a dad-daughter trip. So to continue to do stuff like that and to take like tons of vacation. I'm not going to wait until I'm old and decrepit to retire. And so, those are kind of the 2 big ones. And then to continue to mature as a business. There's a lot. It's not easy to run a business. I look at people that have 100 people or 500 people and think, I don't know how they're doing it.
Rick asked, what is your biggest business mistake you've made so far?
I would say not focusing on email. It's easy and sexy to do Twitter or I got verified or whatever it is, like whatever your little caveat is. But the reality is to communicate with people in the way that's easiest for them and you and most connected is still through email. So I would say if I could go back 8 years, like I've just started my first blog, I would say start your first email list. Email list. And it can feel complicated, it can feel confusing, but I would really try to get people on that so that I can talk to them.
What's your number one piece of advice for someone who wants to be a published author, so not a writer, but a published author and speaker like you?
I'd say give yourself time to develop good ideas. I think, again, we want results faster than they come. It's taken me a long time. And I've only done business books for 3 or 4 years now, which is crazy when you think about it. So I'd say give yourself time, and then just get ready to write a lot. Like for the new book, I've written probably 4 or 5 books already that won't be the book.
Wow.
But I know the real book will be better than it would have been if I had stopped at book 3 or stopped at book 2. So I'd say just, and then I'd say make sure you're enjoying it. Like, if you don't like writing, don't be a writer. Don't it's when people say, should everybody write a book? I always think, no.
Yeah.
In the same way, not everybody should record an album. I shouldn't record an album of my vocals.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make me a failure as an artist. It doesn't make me a failure as a person. It just means my gifts are somewhere else. So I think we went from like in the 70s and 80s, only special people get to write books. And then we ricocheted over here. It was like, everybody should write books. And my hope is we'll land in the middle where we go, maybe you should do a video series, like a video blog series, and never feel the pressure to write a book. Like, why should you write a book? Like, crush your video blog series. Like, that's great. Books are hard, and they're not for everybody. In the same way that there's a lot of things that I shouldn't do. And I feel the same pressure, just the reverse. Like, when people scale their business, I think, I should have 10 people working for me, or 20 people, or 100 people. No, I shouldn't. I never want to run a 100-person business. That'll be failure if I do that. Yeah. That's not for me. So in the same way, it's not failure if you don't write a book. It's not failure if I don't do that business.
Incredible. Thank you so much for being with us today. This was awesome. Go to Jon Acuff, Acuff.me to learn more and to sign up to be notified about his next book and his next 30-Day Hustle program.
Yeah, you can go to 30daysofhustle.com.
Awesome. Well, we will be right back after this with Fast Facts.
Man, there is so much we can learn from that interview, but here are my keys to success.
From my interview with Jon Acuff. Number 1, take your time.
Notice I said in his bio he's been working on creating great stories for 18 years. He says there's no eureka moments and you need to give yourself time to come up with great ideas. Number 2, share your experiences. But maybe I should say that share your experiences. He got to where he is today by sharing his story very authentically on his blog. But in a time where people want to monetize and become an expert and write a book in order to establish authority, he says instead take time to really become an expert and experience things and then write about those experiences. Number 3, hone your craft. This is someone who woke up at 5 a.m. while still employed at his corporate job to write 4 or 5 blog posts a day for his first successful blog. He's studied over 100 comedians and he's gathered thousands of ideas in his smartphone, and he still, even at the top of his game, writes 4 hours per day. When you put in the time and energy to hone your craft, it will pay off. Number 4, serve your community. Jon Acuff has multiple groups of raving fans on Facebook and different social media platforms, and I know because I'm in them, he stays engaged and he gives back and he really contributes in those groups. He cares about his audience. Even when he gets booked for a speaking gig, he asks the event organizer, "How can I make you look like a rock star?" This is someone who's taking care of his audience. And lastly, overcome your fears. He literally wrote a book on this subject called Start, Punch Fear in the Face, Escape Average, and Do Work That Matters. He does not want you to stay stuck in a life you don't love. And he says there's no better time than now. The gatekeepers are gone. The only one keeping you from going after your dreams is you.
All right, we are back with Fast Facts. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Answer as quick as you can. Scrabble or charades?
Charades.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
What is the wallpaper on your phone?
Do summer.
What is the last thing you Googled?
How to shoot video with a D80.
What is the most recent book you read?
Your Money or Your Life.
Favorite nonfiction book?
War of Art.
Favorite fiction book?
Wheel of Time.
One word you're guilty of saying too often?
Awesome.
Who is the last person that called or texted you?
Brian Harris.
Last awkward situation you were in? Other than all the times with me.
Trying to get up this elevator, you have to
It is
prove your
awkward.
identity.
Last vacation?
Martha's Vineyard, like 3 days ago.
Hobby?
Ping pong.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Early.
Winter or summer?
Fall.
Wine or beer?
Winter or summer. Why would you leave off the best one?
I don't know.
Fall.
No one has said that yet, John.
You got what?
Yeah.
Tony Robbins likes the fall.
Wine or
I can see
beer?
that. He's tall, all the leaves. I'd say wine.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
Midsummer Murders.
Wow. Favorite snack?
Probably salt and vinegar. No, queso. What am I saying?
Yeah. Favorite cereal?
Golden Grams.
Favorite music right now? What is your jam?
Like trance.
What?
Like electronic.
Like rave?
Trance, yeah.
What is your biggest...
What did Tony Robbins say was his?
Rap. Most people say rap, which is surprising for...
Not that I could see him listening to rap. I think a lot of people don't listen to rap. They just say rap.
They want to be cool.
They say Beyonce. They don't own a single Beyonce album because you can't criticize her right now.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
People who slowly get off airplanes. Like we descended 30,000 feet. You had every indication this was coming to a conclusion.
What would your wife say is her biggest pet peeve that you do?
Like loud gum chewing. I mean, like pet peeve. Like that's not a deep marital issue, but like loud. Like if I have 2 pieces of gum in the car, forget it.
What were you doing right before this interview?
I was recording a video based on my Google search.
Awesome. And what will you be doing right after this interview?
I've got a phone call with a speaking client, so I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions to see, okay, how do I really serve the audience?
I'm Kelsey Humphreys. This is Jon Acuff, and this has been The Pursuit.
Don't forget, guys, there are 3 ways to support the show. You can subscribe here on YouTube, you can leave a comment, And you can go subscribe to the weekly emails to go behind the scenes and get extra info from each episode.